Hi, my name is Philip Dupuis, Philip Dupuis. I'm the Chief of Police for the Conroe Police Department. Brett Ligon, Brettligon, with the Montgomery County District Attorney, and Kelly Blackburn, KELLYBLACKBURN, Trial Bureau Chief for the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office. So we want to talk about an incident that occurred in Conroe yesterday morning at about 9:10 a.m. The Conroe Police Department received a disturbance call in the 1700 block of Tyler Lane in Conroe. After arriving on location, the officers determined that it was a home invasion that had occurred, where a father and child were bound, and the house was ransacked looking for valuables, at which time the two individuals that entered the residence with the guns, when they left the residence, they left the child bound and took the father with them, telling the child not to call the police. Once the child was able to free himself, he went to a neighbor's house where the Conroe Police Department was called and the investigation started. We learned on pretty early that it was an accurate kidnapping. We contacted the Federal Bureau of Investigations for some assistance with the investigation. The FBI responded quickly and assisted the investigation. We did some warrants for phone pings and things like that. And early this morning, we were able to locate the two of the suspects at a hotel in Webster, Texas, at which time they were taken into custody. And at that time, we were able to determine where the victim was located. And later on in the morning, we went to the residence where the victim was located, and the third suspect was arrested at that residence. It's a difficult day. I want to say that the law enforcement did a great job investigating this in a timely manner. We do have suspects in custody. The public is safe from these suspects. We're able to take them off the street and bring them back to Montgomery County where justice will be served. I want to thank the FBI for their assistance and the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office for their assistance in this investigation. The three individuals that were arrested was Nicholas Chase Cunningham, 7'5" of 1975, Jimmy Tony Sanchez, 5'22" of 79. They are charged with aggravated kidnapping and aggravated robbery, and potentially at some point after the investigation, we may charge them with capital murder. The third suspect, Sophia Perez Heath, 10/24/82, was charged with aggravated kidnapping. We have pictures of them that y'all can get photos of when this is over from that. I'm going to let Mr. Ligon make a few statements, then we'll answer some questions.
Thank you, Chief. Once again, it's Brett Ligon, and anytime you've got a multi-agency jurisdictional investigation, you're going to have some degree of overlap, and so you've got Conroe Police Department running its investigation, contacting the feds. There are several things that could have happened at that point. Bringing in the feds was certainly appropriate. When the incident, so you've got the bad guys that are caught in Webster in the Harris County portion. So you're also dealing with the jurisdiction of Harris County District Attorney Kim Ogg, and the shooting actually took place in the city of Houston. So you're dealing with Police Chief Art Acevedo. The chief and I this morning very quickly were able to get in contact with newly minted U.S. Attorney Ryan Patrick in regards to what portion of this investigation, what portion of the charges were the feds going to handle. Ryan Patrick, even though the paint is still new on the guy, was fully in charge of what was going to go on, how they were going to handle it. Unfortunately, the victim in the kidnapping has died as part of the shooting. They've promised a robust investigation into that portion of it, and we're assured that the Civil Rights Division of the U.S. Attorney's Office will handle that portion along with the FBI shoot team. In talking with Chief Art Acevedo, Chief Acevedo was going to conduct a an investigation in regards to the shooting as well. So you would have two jurisdictions. You'd have the FBI shoot team investigating its shooting along with the Houston Police Department because it occurred within the city of Houston. And the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office, in conjunction with Conroe PD and the detectives with Conroe PD, were probably the most energetic in making sure that the case was brought back to Montgomery County so that these defendants would face a Montgomery County jury. And we felt like that a Montgomery County jury would make sure that the most justice possible to be rendered in this case would be. And the conversations that we had with District Attorney Ogg, Chief Acevedo, U.S. Attorney Ryan Patrick were very professional. Everyone knew what their place was. There was no jostling in regards to who was going to take lead on this. Everybody immediately kind of understood the way that it should go and the way that it would go. And we're just happy to bring the defendants back to Montgomery County. They will be charged this afternoon. We'll have the pleadings. So for those of you who would like to follow up with our DA intake tomorrow morning, we'll be actually able to get the charges with you. We will anticipate seeking a no bond for the incidents. Once again, we do believe it's even though it's good work on behalf of Conroe Police Department, it's still a tragedy. The victim was killed in the exchange, and so that investigation is something that the U.S. Attorney's Office and HPD will conduct separate and apart from the aggravated kidnapping, aggravated robbery charges. And so because it makes a nice distinction, we felt like the very clear and easy case was for us to pursue the kidnapping charges up here in Montgomery County. Any questions?
Can you talk about the possible, you said later on a capital murder charge?
Sure.
What is that in regards to?
And I had the same conversation with the Conroe Courier, Ms. Dominguez, a little bit earlier today. We feel very confident in the aggravated kidnapping charges. It's a first-degree felony by itself, and so the range of punishment on a first degree is a 5 to life. There's a possibility of filing a felony murder in regards to it because the defendants put this into play. You're probably familiar with the old bank robbery scenario where the getaway driver's just outside driving. The bad guy goes in the bank and shoots the teller, and the getaway driver hasn't shot anybody, but he's responsible for the murder as well. And so there is that possibility, even though it appears as if one of the possibilities of a friendly fire, the kidnappers put this into play. And so they're ultimately responsible for the outcome. Regardless if the outcome was intentional or not under the felony murder rule, we can charge that. With that said, we're still looking at a 5 to life range of punishment. It would require me to take on an additional element that under an aggravated kidnapping already have the same range of punishment. And so those are discussions that we'll get to later on. Like I said, we do believe that we'll be seeking no bond for the defendants and pursuing those charges initially, and don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves on this.
What do you know about the relationship between the victim and the suspect?
Somebody shooting at law enforcement at that house?
That part of the investigation was done outside the purview of the District Attorney's Office here, clearly outside of Conroe PD. Conroe PD was there on the ground. They were not part of the entry. It's my understanding the FBI's SWAT was the one that made the initial entry, and so we're not going to be able to address that. I have, in those conversations that I've had with Chief Acevedo, they were aware of what some of the concerns were. They were working to address those as early as 9 o'clock this morning to begin their phase of the investigation. And speaking with U.S. Attorney Ryan Patrick, he was certainly aware of what one of the potential concerns were. And so we talked about all the scope of how the U.S. Attorney's Office would handle it, everything from the possibility of prosecution of the kidnapping case to the possibility of a civil rights violation case that could have been brought against perhaps an errant shooter with the FBI. Once again, that's so far away from what we're focused on. We've got the bad guys. Conroe PD never lost custody of them, even though they were at the FBI building. Conroe PD maintained their diligence on the suspects, and when the chief and I strongly felt like they should bring them back here to Conroe to face Montgomery County, Conroe was able to put them back into custody and brought them right up here to Montgomery County, and it was just that easy.
Right. What do you know about the relationship between the victim and the suspects?
Sure. It's early on, Phil. There does appear to be some type of a relationship, not one I want to go into, and at least for the kidnapping purposes, it wouldn't really matter. And so whether it was a family member or whether it was a stranger, whether it's a stranger danger type of a kidnapping or whether it was somebody who was known or unknown to them, it certainly wouldn't affect us as far as the charging.
Motive?
Sure, but it's motive something that the DA's office doesn't have to prove. So I like to focus on the things that we're in charge of, which is the charging decision, seeking the bond, and ultimately what type of range of punishment that we're going to get to. But as
Were
you
there
know,
ransom demands?
And your two suspects were found in a
In
hotel
Webster.
in Webster, not LaPorte.
yes, sir, in Webster, on the Harris County side of Webster, not on the Galveston County side of Webster. So early on, there were conversations that perhaps we should be dealing with a possibility of Jack Rody down there, and at least so far, this cluster is relegated to only a half a dozen agencies, not the 9 or 10 that it could have been.
Chief, were there ransom demands?
Yes, there were.
Can you give us a ballpark figure of money and how many ransom demands?
I don't know that we want to release that information at this time, but there was a monetary ransom demand made during the investigation.
And did Conroe PD have to deliver the news to the victim's family? And what was that like?
We delivered the news to the brother. We have not delivered the news to the son yet. That was at the house. The juvenile son, is in CPS custody, and CPS is making arrangements at this time to make notification.
Can you tell us why he's in CPS custody and not with a family member?
We didn't have any family members to release him to at the time. The uncle, at the time all this started, the uncle was not there, and we needed the uncle for the investigation. We didn't have a family member to deliver him to, so CPS came and took custody of him, and they've maintained custody since yesterday.
You said the little boy was also found. He managed to escape. Can you tell us when he did get to an Eagles house, what he said, what he told you had happened?
I do not know, other than the two men came into his house armed with handguns and bound him and his father up. So that's all I know at this time.
And can you speak to the possible relationship? If they were they strangers? Was this a random kidnapping? Was something?
It is my understanding that the two individuals that came in were not relatives. So I don't know what angle y'all are looking for, but the two men that came and got them were not relatives. Somebody nodded the back. Am I wrong?
Did they know him? Did they know?
I do not think so.
Are the suspects to a different hotel?
No, they're not to my knowledge. They are not. It is my understanding that they used that as a ploy when they were making the ransom demands. They were trying to say they were with a drug cartel, but we don't believe that to be accurate.
Does it appear anybody who lived in the house was a part of any criminal activity?
In the house in Conroe?
Yes.
No, none whatsoever. The uncle was at work, and the man and his son were at home.
Were the suspects masked when they went in?
Were they masked? I do not believe so. No, they were not.
This morning, when the FBI raid occurred, we've heard from various neighbors that they were asking about children, and now the FBI is focusing on children that were inside that home. Can you tell us what that?
I have not had any contact with the FBI. I do not know what they're investigating there. That would not have anything to do with our investigation out of Conroe.
Chief, what was it like telling the brother what happened?
I personally was not the one that did it, so I can only imagine what it would be like I know what it would be like for me to go tell someone who came to us for help, and we failed him. So I can imagine that the officer had some difficulty speaking with him. I know that it is, I'm not going to say Conroe PD failed the system, but the system failed, whether it was accidental or not. I mean, the man's not going home to his family, and we, we do this job to help people, and doesn't always go our way, but it is difficult at times.
The suspects were originally located at a hotel in Webster. The third suspect, a woman, was arrested at the home. Can you tell us what her role in this was? Was she watching the victim? I mean, why were they at the hotel to begin with?
Yes, she was watching the victim, and that's the reason she was charged with aggravated kidnapping.
And was she armed?
I really don't know anything about what occurred in Houston, and have yet to be contacted to be given any information on what occurred. My investigators were on location. They were outside. We were able to get the suspect, and that's pretty much all we know from that point.
Can you tell us the relationship between the suspects?
Anybody know the answer to that? I don't know the answer to that.
Do you know why the victim's house was chosen? Was it a case of mistaken identity?
I do not believe it was mistaken identity, no.
Yeah, and I think if you'll put it into context, the part of it is when you have somebody kidnapped is to get them back, number one. And so some of the things you're asking, now that things have slowed down, we'll be able to suss out. So, for example, a question was asked, were they a member of a cartel? As part of the kidnapping, it didn't really matter. Will it matter to us on the prosecution side? Will we be able to develop additional evidence? Will we look into prior bad acts, extraneous offenses? Well, of course, because now we'll have all the resources of the federal government, the state government, the Conroe Police Department to kind of do some of that micro inspection that you would do to get ready for trial. With that said, I think what may have been lost on some of y'all is how quickly this thing evolved. And so the incident occurs yesterday. They go up on a phone ping last night. Conroe PD is moving so quickly. Some of the things that they're asking, they're putting their own lives at risk because they don't know all the intel as to whether or not they're going to a dangerous situation because they're focused on getting the victim back. So then they get the suspects in custody. And then once you get the suspects in custody, then it's revealed to you where the victim is. So everybody's hot, everybody's running, and everybody's moving, and things are moving quickly. So all these are great questions, and they're in detail questions. And you have to remember, though, that we're still within about 12 to 24 hours. The kidnapping itself occurred yesterday, and so now we're already at the stage where we've got the defendants in custody, we've got HPD doing an investigation, we've got the U.S. Attorney's Office doing an investigation. The detectives have been up the entire time. We volunteered to put them up in a hotel down there because we didn't know the U.S. Attorney's Office is going to file charges on a weapons charge. We assumed that it would take some type of federal magistration, but as soon as they were done, we wanted Conroe PD to bring them back. They were successfully able to bring the defendants back and put them in Montgomery County Jail. So all these things are questions that will be answered. Right now, though, you got to remember what they were focused on, which was getting the victim and getting the victim back alive. And you see some of the officers still struggling. Obviously, when you're trying to get somebody and all your best efforts, and you're right there, and you're on the precipice of a complete victory. You've got the defendants in custody, you've got the victim, and all you got to do is go and get him, and he gets killed. And so when you see the chief struggling with emotion, the officers are struggling with emotion because this is still very raw and very real to them because they haven't had any sleep, they haven't had any time to digest this. And these are all things that we'll be able to digest in the coming days. Okay, thank you.
Can I just get a clarification? We went to Tyler Road. Is this the Tyler Road? Is this road a private gated road?
Tyler Lane.
Tyler Lane.
Tyler Lane, not Tyler Road. There's evidently two. Tyler Lane.
And I'm sorry, Brett, did you say who the victim is?
I did not say Phil.
Can you say who he is? Next can I notify him?
No, they have not.
One of the concerns is the notification hasn't been made at this point.
We have not released the name of the victim.
Okay.
And he was still bound when he was shot?
Pending CPS notification to the family. The kids, you were in the back. CPS has custody of the kids. No one has made a notification to the kids. The brother is aware, but the kids aren't. And so, obviously, they know something's going on, but just for respect to the family, we're trying to hold on to that information for a little longer.
How many kids are there?
Just one. He said kids, but there's
Just
one.
Okay.
The victim was still bound when he was shot?
Again, I don't know anything about what occurred down in Houston.
Were there any negotiations going on, or was it just the rape?
There had been verbal conversations between the suspects and the brother of the victim, and at some point, some Conroe officers were involved in those conversations. Is that correct, Eddie? Yeah. So was there negotiations? Probably. The answer to your question would be yes. Again, I just want to say that we don't have a whole lot of kidnappings, legitimate kidnappings, and for this one to happen yesterday, and the detective division for the Conroe Police Department, they literally worked straight. I know some of the detectives were out there for over 30 hours, and no sleep, but yet they were able to stay sharp and do everything they needed to do. And then we had fresh detectives come in and take over, so those could go home. It's been just great police work on the part of a bunch of hard-working detectives that work here at the Conroe Police Department, and with the assistant DAs that also helped us from the DA's office. It's just been And the FBI agents too. The ones that were here from the beginning just did a great job in helping us get to where we needed to be. And we got where we needed to be.
I know you're not going to release the name of the victim right now, but can you just tell us a little bit about who they were to the community, and are they from this area? Obviously, he has a son.
I don't have enough of that information to know. I do know that they were employed, and the son, they were the two brothers and the son of one of them were living together at the residence on where they were.
Are they from here originally?
I do not know the answer to that. I would say I do not believe so.
And just to clarify, only an FBI agent fired.
I do not know anything about what occurred in Houston. The one thing I can tell you for sure, that no Conroe police officers discharged their weapons within the situation this morning.
But the FBI shoot team is investigating.
From what the United States attorney told us, yes, that is true.
Yeah, the Civil Rights Division of the U.S. Attorney's Office is investigating. The FBI shoot team was there to investigate the FBI SWAT reaction, and Houston Police Department's Civil Rights Division was going back out there this morning for an additional investigation as well.
And I don't think anybody stated specifically. I think we were assuming when the two suspects went into the house here in Conroe, they were both armed?
Yes,
Okay.
with handguns.
Okay, anything else?
It's the end of the mug shots.
Lieutenant McGinnis has them over there. We only have one copy of them, so y'all have to
Shoot it.
if you don't mind. Anything else? If not, thank y'all for coming down. We appreciate it.
Thank you.